We are Pro Cannabis Media.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Weed Talk Now. I'm the founder of Pro Cannabis Media, Jimmy Young.
And I'm Kurt Dalton, the founder of Cannabis.net.
And joining us is Peter Vogel, the CEO of Leafwire. Peter, thank you so much for joining us, and always a pleasure to run into an old comrade, I guess, right?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks a lot for having me on, Jimmy.
Well, I want to cut right to the chase because literally about, I want to say now 14 months ago, you and I met in Boston at the NCIA Seed to Sale show. Leafwire had just started. I think you had 6,000 people signed up in February of 2019. What's your number now, Peter? You get to gloat a little bit. It's okay.
Yeah, no, I guess that's right. Time goes pretty fast. We're up now. We're close to about 35,000 almost right now.
That's fantastic.
So, yeah, we've seen a ton of growth, and I think we've been up and running for about 18, 19 months. So when you and I first met, we were only probably 4 or 5 months into it.
Right, exactly right. And God, I had another name of my company back then, and now we're moving forward, and now we piggybacked on with Cannabis.net and Kurt Dalton, who has done many, many interviews and has been in the cannabis space now for 4 years. And Kurt, I'm going to turn it right over to you because I know you're chomping at the bit to ask Peter a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, Peter, we wrote an article where we mentioned you guys and that you had done a really good job generating traffic in a short amount of time, which for those that aren't in the industry know there is no, paid advertising directly to Google or Facebook or Instagram. Kind of tell us for Leafwire, the LinkedIn of weed, if you will, what was it like trying to get traffic? What were the responses you got? And you kind of what are some of your secret sauces for the traffic growth you've seen online?
Yeah. So I guess our approach was a little different.
Whoa. That's whoa. Somebody didn't like that question.
I have a dog who likes to participate in all the interviews and podcasts that I do.
That's all right. What's the dog's name and what kind of dog? It's okay.
We call it a Colorado brown dog. It weighs about 60 pounds and it's a rescue. So
okay.
Is that the official AKC? I got to look that one up.
Yeah. And they like to bark at male people or anyone that walks by our house.
There you go.
Pretty common trait. So, but back to your question, Kurt. So our approach was a little different than a lot of cannabis companies because we've been focused 100% on cannabis business people, not consumers. So we didn't focus on things like Google or Facebook or Instagram as much just because you tend to get a lot of consumer focused kind of advertising in those places. We've really focused on the B2B kind of online periodicals, things like Marijuana Business Daily, Cannabis Business Executive, Cannabis Business Times, Ganjapreneur, and a handful of other. I'm sure you guys get all these, but you can't throw a rock and not hit a cannabis newsletter these days with 15 news stories every day.
And it looks like, go ahead, Kurt, go ahead.
You just recently in the last, I guess, 60 or 90 days announced the MJ Biz partnership. Kind of walk us through, you're going to have MJ Biz content on Leafwire and in certain modules. Kind of tell us how that's going to work.
Yeah, for sure. So MJ Biz, as we all know, is very focused on in-person events. So times are a little different right now for them. They're used to having a big buzz around their events the month before, during, the month afterwards, and that's how they engage and stay connected. So they realized that in these times, they need a way to do that online. So they looked around kind of the environment and they saw us as kind of the most universal business platform for cannabis. And they chose us to host essentially industry groups. So they want to publish content. So we're starting off with 2 groups, and I think this is actually going live tomorrow. So good timing. The first 2 groups, one is called Hemp Industry Group, and the other one is called International Cannabis News Group. And then we will be adding on the next couple groups. I think will be cultivation and growing, legal and regulation, and investment and finance. So the idea of the groups is very much like the traditional LinkedIn style groups, is for people for both MJ Biz to be able to post all of their news every day. So they're going to be posting multiple articles a day. And then other people to come on, also post information, ask questions very specifically related just to those groups, just to that news topic. And MJ Biz is also going to be, they're going to have a moderator who's going to be reading the questions. And in case someone asks a question that takes some expertise, they're going to actually get the article of each of the articles to actually come back on and answer questions for people. So that there'll be a subject matter expert available if anyone wants to dig much deeper into what's already there.
One of the most
moderator. So good for you. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah, one of the most fascinating things and developments in this space, Peter, has been driven. A lot of this movement has been driven by science and research, and I noticed some of your categories there, and I wonder if ultimately there may be availability of science and the latest in research out there.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And you're right. People post on Leafwire, they post a ton of stuff about the latest science, the latest discovery on terpenes or CPG or CBD or whatnot, or treatment of very specific conditions. We'll see how it progresses. Those first 5 I mentioned are just the first 5 they wanted to start with, but I'm sure we'll be adding a lot more groups, and I think that's a great one.
Yeah. I hope we get a chance to get involved with your news operation too, since that's something Kurt and I keep an eye on a daily basis up here in the Northeast. And things are, have ground to a stop in Massachusetts on the adult use recreation side thanks to COVID-19. But hopefully in the next week or two, they'll come up with some kind of a plan that at least will get it moving again. This has been as the word is unprecedented. It's been used so many times in news reports about COVID-19. What effect has that had at all, or if any, on your business and your business model?
So a couple different kind of ways to look at that. One that we didn't expect at all. So we were getting traffic about 50-50 from desktop and mobile. And we looked recently and we're kind of shocked, and then realized it made perfect sense. We're now at 80% desktop and only 20% mobile, which makes sense because everyone's at home, right? So more people are on desktop. So I don't know exactly what that means, but we were just kind of surprised by that development. We've also seen higher levels of traffic, which also makes sense. I mean, more people are at home using online tools like Zoom, social networks, business networks, things like Leafwire. We're seeing now close to, it's about 2,000 unique people every single day on the platform. And that represents about 3,000 sessions. So people that are coming are typically coming 1.5 times each. So they come back to check. People get comments on their posts, people get messages, so people are communicating, and it kind of leads to that network effect.
Gotcha.
That's a real sticky platform, and it's doing great. Take me back to the beginning as an entrepreneur. I'm a lean startup guy. You want to get in this industry. You want to be on, the tech side. How did the idea come out for, hey, I need a LinkedIn, but just for cannabis? Walk me through the idea in the beginning.
Yeah, so I got brought on by some kind of veterans in the space. I had been a co-founder, entrepreneur in more of the tech marketing advertising space, and a fellow CEO who was in the same industry as I was, a guy named Marion Marathason, who's the CEO of Simplifya, who's a compliance company in the space. They've done really well. They just successfully raised a couple $1 million in the last month or so, which is pretty amazing considering the conditions right now. Most people are having a lot of difficulty raising money. So he and a couple others, and a really well-known law firm here in Colorado and other states, of Vicente Cederberg. The two main principals of that firm, Brian Vicente and Christian Cederberg, both some of the guys that wrote the law out here in Colorado to make recreational cannabis legal. Them and Marion and some other guys kind of had this idea. When we started off, it was really more focused on investment. So when we initially started, we were calling ourselves more the angel list of cannabis, connecting investors to cannabis. We started that way. After about 6 months, we realized it's really hard to raise money from companies that are fundraising because they're broke, they're super cheap, and they don't want to spend any money on anything. And we weren't a broker dealer, so it was difficult to generate revenue from the deal happening. And at that same time, all of a sudden, we were realizing everyone was using our platform like LinkedIn. Everyone was posting, they were promoting events, asking questions. We had hundreds of thousands of connection requests across the platform. We're now up to, I think, almost 1 million connection requests on the platform. So, excuse me. So we decided to shift a little bit and refocus our revenue streams more around things like advertising, both in our email, on the website, jobs, and subscriptions, and still serve, companies that are fundraising and still serve investors, which we still do, but we also serve the entire kind of cannabis community. So anyone that's interested in the business of cannabis, we want to provide a platform so they can connect and find partners, employees, and investors, and kind of just do everything they would need to support their business.
There's definitely a interest in the B2B versus B2C in any startup, whether that is in the cannabis space or in any other industry. But specifically for cannabis, it opens up opportunities for so many ancillary businesses that want to get into the cannabis space. Is that a target of yours too?
100%. I'd say we generate 80 to 90% of our revenue from ancillary companies. We've seen multinational packaging companies do advertising with us, HR companies, investment finance type companies, transportation type companies, almost any technology like POS type, security. There's so many more of those than brands. I mean, most people, and I don't think there's any great data in the industry that actually nobody knows for certain, but I think the estimate is there's probably 4 to 5 times as many ancillary brands as there are plant touching. So it's naturally makes sense that, it takes multiple companies to service one cannabis dispensary, or multiple companies to service one grow or one store. So it makes sense that there's going to be, many times more ancillary companies than there are licensed plant touching companies.
And Peter, what would be your dream end goal? Is it kind of like an IPO, LinkedIn, Microsoft deal, or would you like to stay private and raise more funds, or kind of what's your end game for Leafwire?
I think our goal would be to have some sort of liquid event to, provide returns for our investors. We did do a seed round, raise some money. We are trying to raise some more right now, but within the next couple of years, and I think this has a lot to do with things going fully legal. We think that there may be some great opportunities for us to be acquired by, for example, one of the bigger job companies, like an Ask.com, Career Builder. There's about a dozen of those now that are all huge. It's probably less likely a company like LinkedIn would acquire us, partially just because they typically only acquire companies for unique technologies, not their member base. Since their member base is so massive already, they don't necessarily need that from us. Whereas a company that's, like About.com or Career Builder, once things go fully legal and they want to jump in 100% to cannabis, it probably makes sense for someone like that. By that point, we'll have 100,000 members, 200,000, and represent. So right now, our 35,000 members represent close to about 15,000 companies. By the time we get to 100 or 200, that number is going to be up to around 50,000 companies. So it would be a way for one of those companies to have an immediate, become the number one, job site in cannabis, immediately with one acquisition.
Question for you regarding the future of cannabis in this country. Kurt and I talk about this a lot, especially over the last few months, where we're all kind of cooped up, especially here in Massachusetts, where I feel like I've been in this office or my home for the last 2.5 months. What are some of the positives that you see happening to the cannabis industry moving forward? A lot of people believe that there actually may be even more quick movement towards legalization, or at least maybe even descheduling or decriminalization, because these states now are going to be looking for revenue streams and job opportunities and expansion of jobs. So needless to say, the cannabis community thinks that, hey, come on down, we're ready to go, right?
100%. Yeah, there have been a bunch of articles. We just posted a couple yesterday on Leafwire. I think it's Virginia, Vermont, or I think I even read some of Montana. There's been a bunch of states that have people within those states have either started lobbying, or even parts of the state governments have started to start some rumblings that they want to push legalization as soon as COVID's over. For that exact reason, like you said, Jimmy. I mean, they're gonna be broke. Like a lot of these states are gonna be scrambling to replace the tax revenue from the, what is it now, like 25 million people nationwide that are out of jobs. I mean, those people aren't paying taxes, so those states aren't getting the taxes. So it's not just the U.S. government that's shelling out all this money. The states are as well, and they're going to be desperate. And the fact that a lot of the states have already been calling cannabis an essential industry, it's kind of seems like it's changed its stature in the U.S. or in different states as not just some sort of novelty or recreational use, that it's actual essential. So I think that will help drive, and we all, fingers crossed, we're all hoping that'll happen. And I would say one other thing that just happened, the Safe Banking Act being included in this latest bill that passed the House, I think. But I mean, people are pretty skeptical it's going to make it any further. But that would be amazing if they could clear up the banking problems that the industry has faced for years. I mean, that would be a huge step and probably bring in a lot of money.
Yeah, I think you're seeing that the cannabis issue becoming part of the political scene. You mentioned the block in the Senate. I mean, the Safe Banking Act passed months ago in the House. That was kind of a historic thing. And then, of course, the Senate didn't want to have anything to do that the Democrats were involved with. So hopefully this crisis will actually get some of our leaders to start thinking more clearly about actually reaching across the aisle and working together on some of these problems that are facing our country right now. I'm an optimist, certainly, an idealist in many ways. A lot of people think I'm a dreamer. Hey, call me a dreamer. It's okay. I'd like to see it happen as quickly as possible. And if it does open up the banks before the end of 2020, that's a huge lift on so many fronts for the cannabis industry, especially on the investment side, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Go ahead. You can expand.
Yeah, on the investment side, that you make there are a ton of investment funds, private equity firms, et cetera, that won't touch cannabis right now. And their mandate from their investors disallows them from doing anything that's federally illegal. It doesn't matter what state they're in. If it's federally illegal, they can't do it. So a lot of the people with the biggest pockets are still at arm's length from cannabis. And that people suspect once things go fully legal, you're going to see a lot of that money try and pour in quickly to try and jump on opportunities they've missed out on a lot. A lot of opportunities they could have taken advantage of are gone, or already progressed so far. It's just not the same opportunity, but there's still a lot of open space out there. So I think there could be a large influx once that happens.
And do we have to wait for legalization, I guess, is my question, or have we progressed enough that we could, especially if they open up the banks in the United States for cannabis businesses? Isn't that going to be a big win? That's a huge win for the industry.
100%, and it doesn't have to wait for legalization.
Right.
That alone, I think, would help a lot of money pour in, because investors no longer worry about the government stamping down on anyone anytime they want to. I mean, the federal government could still come after anyone at any time if they wanted to.
Right. And if we had, never mind. I'm not going to go political here. I was going to make a statement. I decided not to. Kurt, you'll be proud of me, okay? I stayed in my place that time, all right?
We'll keep it to cannabis. So other than investing in Leafwire, which is a great opportunity for people, you kind of have your pulse on the, your finger on the network of what you're seeing and what people are talking about. What other investments, like excluding yourself, of course, could you talk about that kind of you get excited about going forward? Anything you like in cannabis or not like?
I think a lot of the hallucinogenic options, whether it's mushrooms or other things, those are gaining traction. A lot of cities have decriminalized them around the country. I think in like California and Oregon, Washington, Denver. They decriminalized psilocybin, the magic mushroom they call it, and I think there's going to be some brands that pop up, kind of like you have some really well-known cannabis brands like Wana and Kiva and Incredibles and Chiba Chews. There's going to be some people that step up and fill that space. I think that's kind of an interesting space, along with all the other cannabinoids that people are slowly discovering. People talk already about like CBG and CBN. I think it's for sleeping, and CB1. There's a bunch of other ones, but those two, I think they're just starting to test. And if the government would kind of open up the ability for people to do more research and not be so restrictive, I think that would be huge too. So I guess those are kind of two of the areas that I'm interested in.
Yeah, I think definitely you're going to see, could be a possible mushroom wire coming down the road if we're getting into mushrooms. So
hopefully we'll just have those people join Leafwire.
There you go. Right. Well, we'll create a separate module or capsule for them, the mushrooms.
That's right. Well, actually, the research side of things, there was a lawsuit by a Arizona group that discovered, because they won, that the United States was actually doing something, well, let's just say not exactly on the up and up, because there were two different agencies involved, the DEA and I believe it was the FDA. And now all of a sudden, people are starting to lobby for more places to actually get access to research. It's really been a non-starter. What's your feeling about the research side of things and the fact that this was kind of exposed? And I think it was Leafly actually that wrote the article that kind of exposed this lawsuit out of Arizona.
Yeah, I think it's a shame, and I think it's an opportunity our country has kind of squandered. You see other countries like Israel and some of the European countries have done a ton of research, and they're basically going to lead the way in a lot of these developments that we're just behind on. So I think the longer we just hold up research and don't give people access, and I've even read that the research they do is based on product that's not even representative of the types of products that are sold. Like it's not even the same strength. So the research.
You could call it crap. It's 7% THC, and as anyone who's in this space knows, that is maybe it was what it was like back in the 70s, but not now. So it ain't. It's more like daddy's weed than it is the current weed. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, totally. So they're not allowing a lot of research, and the research that they're doing is not even focused on necessarily what's representative of actual public consumption.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Kurt, you got something? I know you do.
Yeah, Peter, just before we wrap up, if people are watching this video and watching it on replay, how much are you trying to raise? How can people get in with Leafwire as an investor? How can they contact you? Give us the pitch, and where can they send a check?
Yes. Well, first of all, we'd love for everyone to join Leafwire. So come join us, join our community if you're not a member. I'd also love if anyone is interested in potentially investing. We are raising a convertible note. I can't really announce like amounts and valuation just based on SEC regulations. But anyone who's interested can contact me at peter@leafwire.com, and I'd be happy to share our pitch deck or just have a conversation if someone wants to learn a little more about what we're doing.
Hey, that's great. Let me ask you one more business question regarding fundraising. And it is something that when I had my first company 10 years ago, it was a lesson learned perhaps the hard way. You can't run your business and build funding for your business at the same time. Is that true? And how are you going about it? Are you the guy that's doing everything, Peter?
So I have a partner who runs the more technical side of the business. We have a tech team in Sri Lanka who does our actual development, but I do most of the kind of the sales, marketing, fundraising, PR, like that side of the business. So I would agree that fundraising takes up a lot of time, and you kind of feel like it never ends because you go from one round and then you're almost starting the next round by the time you finish one round. And unfortunately, for most small companies, you kind of have to run the company and fundraise at the same time. That's not to say that's ideal or good, but unfortunately for almost every entrepreneur, it's not like you just have a whole team who's working for you that you can just step aside. So you basically have to, you have to be down in the trenches, at the same time while you're, trying to get money from investors.
And still be able to take out the garbage and clean the toilets and do everything else. So there's all those glamour jobs when you own a business, right, Peter?
Yeah, I mean, there's everything from customer service to marketing to, making sure you have insurance and, all the payroll and, all the stuff that no one wants to spend time on.
That is so true. Well, Peter Vogel, we go to leafwire.com. That's where we'll see a lot more information now. There's definitely content on there. I think I may have just read that Curaleaf came into some money. They're friends of ours because they're Massachusetts based here. There's always something new happening in the world of cannabis. It's a fascinating time to be involved in this industry. You meet great people like yourself, Peter. I enjoyed it a few months back, and hopefully we can keep this thing going.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks a lot for having me, Jimmy and Kurt. Great to be on.
There you go. So for Peter Vogel from Leafwire, I'm Jimmy Young, the founder of Pro Cannabis Media.
And I'm Kurt Dalton from Cannabis.net.
And that'll do it for another edition of Weed Talk Now. Remember, it's a whole new world of weed out there. Use it responsibly. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Weed Talk and In the Weeds are two productions of Pro Cannabis Media supported by Revolutionary Clinics, one of the top medical cannabis dispensaries in the Massachusetts area, now with 3 locations in Greater Boston, 2 in Cambridge and 1 on Broadway in Somerville. Rev Clinics has a patient-first mission. They will customize your needs as a medical patient with the proper titration and combination of strains, flavors, and products. Rev Clinics, where the patient comes first.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.